Hello, in this video I am going to explain you some fundamental concepts of AWS VPC. So let's get started. As you can see here, these are the contents of this video, like what is AWS VPC, why AWS VPC is needed, what are CIDR and IP addressing, subnets, public versus private subnets, internet gateway, route table, security groups and network ACL. So first we start from VPC. So what is VPC? VPC is basically a logically isolated virtual network in AWS where you launch and manage your cloud resources. Why do we need it? Network isolations. Your resources run in a private network separate from other AWS users. For security control, control who can access your servers. Custom network configurations. It also defines the IP ranges, subnets, routing and gateways. Full cloud infrastructure control. Full control over networking similar to on-premise networks. And what are the key components of VPC? So first is CIDR block and subnet. CIDR defines IP addressing ranges from network, whereas subnet is a smaller network created inside the VPC CIDR range. It belongs to one availability zones. So here is the format, like this is IP and this is number, and these are the range of CIDR. Like if we put up 16/16, the total IP address is 65,000, out of which 5 IP address got minus, so 65 531 common BBRNs. If the range is 20, then 4096 4091 is usable IP, and if 24 256 out of 251 is usable IP, and if 28 16 in which 11 are usable IP, which is very small. So these are the numbers after slash tells how the big network is. The both VPC and subnets use CIDR notation. CIDR is IP range format, whereas VPC is big network using CIDR. Subnet is a smaller network using CIDR inside VPC. So VPC is basically a big LAN, whereas CIDR is a small LAN in the VPC big LAN. No. Subnet is basically a small LAN inside VPC, whereas IP address are the small houses inside the subnets which you live. So that's how the things work. And the full form of CIDR is basically, if we search it on a Google, I somehow not clearly remember that. So the full form is basically common classes inter-domain routing. This is the full form of CIDR. So what are the types of subnets? So the types of subnet is public and private. Public subnet has a route to internet gateway. It can be instances can be accessed from the internet, used for basically web servers, load balancer, base station host. Whereas the private subnet has no direct internet route. It is used for instances cannot be accessed from the internet. It basically uses NAT gateway and used for application servers, database, internal services. The simple, if we look the simple architecture of VPC, like this is the VPC and the private subnet here, which is load balancer, and the private subnet here application servers, and also the private subnet is database. And these numbers like 24, which I am already explained you, the 24 means the total usable IP is 251. Most common subnet size this is. So one thing you need to remember, that in the private subnet, the whole private public also, the AWS reserves 5 IP addresses in every subnet. So usable IPs are reduced by 5. These are the reserved IPs, like the network address, VPC router, DNS servers, and future use. And matlab, what I mean is, one for network address, one for VPC, one for DNS server, and one for future use. And one also missing, so one is maybe for, let's search it on a Google, 5 reserved IP address in subnet. If we see, the one is for this, the fifth is broadcast address, so the fifth is missing, so I put this into this note. One is for broadcast address. So if we look at the typical architecture, for example, the subnet is basically this, in which 24 is your CIDR range, whereas the total IP is 256, and one is like, these are the 5 reserved IPs. Like the first is basically then for use for network address, second for VPC, third for DNS server, fourth for future use, and fifth for broadcast. So total usable IP is 256 minus 5, 251. So let's now talk about internet gateway. But before that, I wanted to show you where is actually the VPC on AWS console. So you can also see here the VPC. If you are not see here on the home screen, you can simply search it on the console here. So right now I am going to select VPC. So yes, the VPC is basically 5 are already reserved by AWS. You need to remember that. And if we see that VPC console, in the left side you see the VPC components which you use inside your VPC network, virtual private cloud network. I think my internet is very slow, so it's extremely slow. But what I can do, why it's slow, like here you can see the VPC, these are VPC, these are the endpoint NAT gateway, and here you can see, here you can launch your VPC by creating VPC only, VPC more. Here you can select your stuffs like CIDR range, IPv6 block, and many more things. And if you click here, create IP, here you put have to range, and you also can also create your VPC. Now let's talk about Internet Gateway. So Internet Gateway is basically a VPC component that connects your VPC to the internet, the fundamental and most important component. Without it, instances in the VPC cannot communicate with the internet. It enables inbound and outbound internet traffic used by public subnets 1 IGW per VPC. Like if you go ahead, VPC console, here you can see gateways. Like here you can see the gateway of section. You can also create a gateway. You put a name and create. So what is route table? So route table contains rules that decide where the network traffic should go. The internet gateway provides internet connection, whereas route table tells the subnet who use that internet connection. If route table contains this like 0.000, this is basically your internet gateway. After that, subnet becomes a public subnet. Here you can see the route table also in your VPC sections, where you can click on the route table. Here you can see the route table. You can also create table, like here you can put a name on it, VPC tags, and you can create it. Also, if you click on your current route table, you can see the many more stuffs like your route table IP, your inbound rule, on outbound rule. You can also create many more things from here. So this is the basically the things, like how things work. Like here is your internet, here is your internet gateway, here is router, here is public subnet, private subnet connected inside the VPC, and here is your whole AWS. So yeah, so what is security groups? Security groups is basically a virtual firewalls that controls traffic to and from an EC2 instance. It basically defines which traffic is allowed to enter or leave the instance. Multiple instances can use same security groups. Security groups work on allow logic only. Everything else is automatically blocked. It is attached to the EC2 instance, not subnets. Like the inbound rules, which are the types of security groups. Inbound rule controls incoming traffic to the instance like SSH, HTTP, whereas the outbound rules control outgoing traffic from the instance to the other destinations like all traffic ports. Instances that can send traffic on any protocol through any port to any IP address. Here you can see the security groups also, like the security groups. Yeah, security groups in the security section. Here you can also create a security group. Here you can put your inbound rules, outbound rules, some tags if you want, and finally you can create from clicking this here. So let's move ahead. So what is network ACL? So this is the firewall that controls traffic at the subnet level in a VPC. It controls which traffic is allowed or not allowed to enter or leave a subnet. Used to add extra network security for subnet. NACL supports both allow and not allow rules. Network ACL is attached to the subnets. Network ACL is stateless. It means that response traffic must be allowed separately. Network ACL is a stateless, so inbound rules and outbound traffic must be allowed. It is basically stateless. So you have to outbound and inbound, you must have to be both allowed. These are the types of NACL. Like inbound rules, you can control incoming traffic to the subnet like SSH, HTTP. Same here also. Outbound rules, you can control outgoing traffic from the subnet to the other instance, to the other destinations. It means allow all traffic, which is basically by default here. Allow all traffic, any protocol, any port to any IP address. And here you can see, first I'm going to see where is NACL. Like no NACL. Here you can search NACL. NACL. Here you can see create a web NACL, but I am going to network NACL. So yeah, as you can see here, like if my internet is slow, so I'm going to explain you what is security group, difference between security group and NACL. So security group is basically used for instance, whereas NACL is used for subnet. Security group, whereas you can allow only, whereas in NACL you can both allow and not allow. Stateful security group, yes, whereas in NACL no. As you can see here, rule order, no order, and here you can use rule numbers, which I'm going to show you here. The rule numbers, like if we going to create ACL, here you can see, here you can also select your VPC, you can name here. And if we click on my current network ACL, here you can see the 100 rule number, whereas all traffic, all ports, all the port range, it is currently on, it is currently allowed. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching this video.